Ooh, let's us go live. Ooh, okay, view on Facebook. Let's have a look. Let's have a look here. What's happening here? Oh, right. Interestingly, what's happened this evening? Not too sure what's going on, but anyway, hopefully that it's live. Not too sure what's happened with Facebook, so apologies. It was set up, and now, oh, hang on, it might be there now. So you're gonna have to let me know if you're on Facebook this evening. It was all set up, and then it's just a message just come up to say it was deleted. So I'm not too sure what's happened. So if anyone's there, please let me know in terms of either on Twitter or YouTube. Not got this thing right yet at all. But anyway, we're going to make a start. Just waiting for my sound engineer to pop me a message to say that it's up and running. And let's see what happens for this evening. So we're looking at moral injury again. Can it be avoided or not? So that's what we'll be looking at this evening. So hopefully, I'm going to put the definition in the chat box. Oh, it's gone on a bit. It's gone a bit long in terms of the definition, but anyway, hopefully you can see what it's about. Moral injury is a distressing psychological, behavioural, social, and sometimes spiritual aftermath of exposure to such events. Started off, if you're here for the first time, started off in the Vietnam War. Jonathan Shea, psychiatrist, saw what was going on and saw the behaviour of some of the soldiers once they returned. And then we have moral injury in terms of what's happened in the pandemic, where you had NHS staff, paramedics, and people involved in and police force. Good evening, Sonia. My sound engineer is not with me yet, but so it looks like you're the sound engineer by proxy. Don't know what's happening with Facebook. It said it was deleted. Anyway, let's crack on with this evening. I'm going to keep working at it until it gets sorted. So during the Vietnam War, thank you, sound engineer. During the Vietnam War, people experienced moral injury, and there was a definite definition that I just showed there. It's when people's rights and values have been violated. That's what we're looking at. But I'm really focusing on moral injury in the workplace. That's what we're really looking at. So my name is Dilroy Hall. I'm a trained psychotherapist and lecturer. If you're here for the first time, welcome. I've been doing these broadcasts now for 4 years. And welcome this evening. This is not so as a psychotherapist, you're there to help people through difficulties, but also this is no substitute for you going to see the doctors or going to see psychologists or psychotherapists or counselors. This is just a 20 minutes, half an hour session for hints and tips to help us get through things. And certainly this subject has really it's kind of taken me by storm. The amount of contacts and interaction I've had with people over the last 4 months nearly has been absolutely astounding. And I really thank people for sharing their stories. Some have shared the stories and I've shared them on the air. I've asked the permission. I never share people's stories unless I ask their permission. Even if it's public and it's in the public domain, I just want to make sure it's okay for me to share. And even if the name's on it, I just want to know that it's okay for me to share the story. So the question I was kind of looking at was this whole idea of moral injury in the workplace and can we avoid it? Now, it seems like I've just checked over on, I've just checked over on Facebook and it looks like it is now live 2 minutes in. I don't know what's going on. Let me just stick with StreamYard. I'll sort it out another time. I've got to keep working on it because I know that some people really want to be on Facebook because it's better interaction and so forth. So as you know that I do this broadcast, but also write about 1,000-word article, just kind of looking at some of the areas, and then I do a deep dive into the subject matter. So can it be avoided? Well, it depends. It depends on a load of things. And maybe by the end of this half an hour, you might be thinking, what on earth was he going on about today? It depends. I think there's 3 things mainly whether we can avoid moral injury. Either it's to do with leadership, sometimes to do with the culture of where we are in terms of the workplace, and also there's something about you, the individual, the employee, who's working there. And one of the ways in which I think it can be avoided, and it's interesting, people have been speaking to me outside of the broadcast, how costly moral injury is, and they get it. I think it can be avoided with good leadership. And let me just say, what is good leadership as far as I understand? Oh, right. Okay. Yep. It looks like it's on. So listen, I'll be because of the fact it's not picking up on StreamYard, I'll be going across. If you make a comment, bear with me. What I'll do, if I can, I'll copy it, put it on the StreamYard screen so people can see it, and then I'll make the interaction. I love people to ask questions. It keeps me on my toes, and it helps me to think through what I'm doing and all that type of stuff. So good. If you're going to ask a question, please do. Okay. So what do I mean by good leadership? Now, this is what I've experienced of 30 years of leadership. Lots of us start off incredibly insecure, quite controlling, if I'm going to be honest. But hopefully, as we mature into the role, we realize there's a great amount of knowledge in the people who we're leading, in the team, in the congregation, in the people that come, wherever it might be. There's loads of knowledge, and part of the leadership role is to tap into that. So leadership really for me is key. So these are my 4 areas of leadership, and maybe I just want to say that today I'll be looking at leadership, other side of leadership, and then what we can do as individuals to kind of bring about change in our workplaces. We can bring about change, but there's a cost to it, like most things. So leadership for me, I'm split down to 4 things. I'm very, very clear about leadership, and sometimes it sounds as if I'm quite critical of leadership, and sometimes I am. Part because I've been involved in leadership myself, and I kind of know, I've got the bruises, I've got the scars. So leadership for me is kind of 4 areas, whether this be third sector, public sector, private sector, corporate. And you may say, well, Delroy, it doesn't kind of work out in those corporate where there's all money, but it can do. As I'm reflecting on it, it's not even down in my notes. Robert Greenleaf, he wrote about servant leadership in the 60s. A leadership style that really transformed how organizations work and tapped into the best of people. So leadership, from my understanding, 4 main areas. If you're a leader, you are called to serve the people you are leading, the people in your team, your department, your organization, the corporation. You are called to serve them. That's what it's about. And I'm sure, like many would agree with me, lots of leadership we see quite often is very self-serving. We don't see much serving of others going on, but leadership, in my own mind, is about serving others. Number 2, leaders are creative people. They do things differently. They're innovative. They look at things, and if they say, well, if somebody says this is the only way it can be done, leaders think, well, no, there must be another way that can be done, maybe more cost effective. But so let's think this through a little bit more. And I know by asking questions, I remembered, I may have shared it some time ago. I was part of this third sector charity, and we needed a balcony. The structure was there, but we needed money to put the risers in and all the rest of it. And I was told 2 years it can't be done. And I was reading some self-help books, and I remember reading, if you say it can't be done, the brain shuts down. But if you ask the question, how can it be done? The brain then begins to open and give you possibilities. So I thought, all right, let me try this. Anyway, cutting a long story short, tried it. Within 6 weeks, the risers were in, the seats were in, and we had a recording studio built in as well. So, but by leaders change questions. Here, it can't be done. Well, okay, if it can't be done, how can we do it differently? How can we do it more cost effective and tap into the wisdom of the team? So first thing is serving. The second thing is creation, innovation, doing new things, pushing the boundaries. And number 3, and I really want to focus on this, is this creating a safe space, psychological safety. For those of you that are readers, one of the best books on psychological safety is Black Box Thinking. I think I mentioned it before, Black Box Thinking by Matthew Said. He's from the world of table tennis, and Black Box, as you know, is from the world of aviation. And he says that one of the reasons why, many reasons, but one of the reasons why the aviation industry is so safe is they had to change the culture. That's one. And two, change the culture in a way that every incident, whether major or minor, was reported and investigated, and then there'll be new findings. And people could report without fear of suspension, being dismissed or being marginalized and so forth. Now, lots of organizations are years away from that. We talk about whistleblowing, and whistleblowing really, if it does take place, the person should be still remain in situ. And I've been hearing individuals who have whistleblown, gone to court, they've kept the job, but their life in the workplace has been absolutely horrendous. I was talking to somebody some time ago, and somebody who knew, he knew, really good at their job. And what happens quite often, if they want to find you out, they find you on a really minor flaw, minor technicality, and they trump charges against you, and then quite often you're out. And I think there's an aspect of moral injury which is legal, but because we're so caught up, we're upset, we're in the moment, we haven't got the wherewithal. Quite often we sign the NDAs, they give us a chunk of money, and I suspect they know they've done wrong. They give us a chunk of money, can't say anything, sign this, and we're off on our way, and the problem is no longer in the workplace. So psychological safety is, you as a leader, you create the environment, so if people need to say something, they can say it without fear of being dismissed or suspended or being ostracized. So there's 4 stages of psychological safety. I do teach on this, but I looked on this just recently, and I just saw four areas that I wasn't aware of. So there's kind of psychological safety, four areas. Inclusion safety, meaning everybody feels that they belong. And you know, and I know, where we are, if we're in a place and we feel that we belong, we feel relaxed and we feel able to say what we like to say. So there's inclusion safety, where everybody feels they belong. There's a learner safety, where everybody there feels that they can learn by asking questions. Questions are not seen as a threat, but there's an attitude, there's an environment of asking questions to learn. So that's learner safety. There's contribution safety, where people feel that they can make a contribution, and even if it's wrong, they will be listened to, and there'll be reasons given as to why they can't do that at this particular time. So there's kind of inclusion, learner safety, contribution safety, and challenge safety. One of the things I learned in leadership, you need to have people around you who will challenge your thoughts. So I remember on many occasions, there was a particular individual, he may be watching, he may not be, I won't say his name, but in the end, I had to say to him, you know, I said, sometimes when you ask a question, I think to myself, oh God, no, not him again. But I said, I realize it's that when you ask questions, it is not to dismiss what you're doing, but you want clarity. And what that asking the question does, it helps me think through what we need to do, and then it's open then to other people to make the contribution. One of the things, one thing about leadership, of course, I've said to lots of leaders, look, if there's a team meeting, there's an objective, and there's things you need to aim for, you should be the last person to speak, but you give your team the opportunity to make contributions so that everybody can hear each other. And that's not copping out of your role as a leader. You hear all the thoughts. So when you make a decision, it's an informed decision, not that you blame anybody if things go wrong, but everybody's been able to talk about a particular issue and their particular perspective. So the whole thing about psychological safety, in the article, I've left 2 links to a video, one of them by Simon Sinek. I just love what he says about psychological safety. He says, we ask the wrong question. How can we get the best out of people? He says, people are not there to be wrung out. But he says, what you do as a leader, you create the environment so people will give of their best. And I've always said this, people will be committed and people won't comply. When people are committed, if you're a leader and you listen to this, when you have people that are committed, even when you turn your back, they are still committed. But if you have people only comply, the minute you've turned your back, they're going to do their own thing. So there's a great thing between commitment and compliance. So leadership, in terms of moral injury avoidance. So leadership, serving, innovation, psychological safety. And the final thing is development. Leaders develop other people. You develop the department. You develop your team. You ensure that everybody has a good slice of the cake and they are there to be developed. Also, knowing that you may develop an individual and they may no longer want to be part of the team or the division or the department. They want to go elsewhere. In fact, I think the Greek idea of teaching is that a teacher teaches his pupils in such a way that he or she becomes better than them. So this whole thing about leadership, doing yourself out of a job, and I would just say this, you're not doing yourself out of a job, really, because if you're training and developing people, the world itself is looking for people that can train people as leaders really, really well. You'll never be out of a job if you train leaders. So this is kind of 30 years of distillation. I don't even know if it's in a book, but certainly what I've discovered and what works is this whole thing around serving, innovation, psychological safety, and developing others. Is this easy? No, it's not. It's really, really difficult. But you can create the environment where moral injury doesn't take place, and your employee can feel safe to talk to you. If there's any issue, they can feel safe knowing that there's not going to be any rebuttal for their contribution. I'm sure there's other models, and I'm sure you perhaps use your own. But one of the things about, if you want to ask me how do you become a great leader, then Delroy, read, yes, training, yes, conferencing, yes. But the great thing about leadership development is leading from let your context teach you. You reflect on lived experience. I will say this till the day I die. You reflect on lived experience, because that experience you've had is teaching you something if you're able to reflect on it. Of course, one of the things that's underpinning all I've said is courage. Certainly, if you're in an environment, it's hostile, toxic culture, you're a leader, you've got the range. In fact, some CEOs are appointed to change the culture, and it just doesn't happen overnight. You've got people who are still there who want the toxicity to remain, and you as a CEO are brought in there, or your leader of a team or division, you're brought in to bring about change. It can take place, but it takes courage and it takes some strength and so forth. Let me just check on Facebook to see what's going on. Oops. Well, it looks like people are seeing it anyway, so I can't see any questions at the minute, but I'm sure if anybody wants to make add a question, please do, or even on YouTube, please do. So, okay, so we looked at a few things in terms of moral injury. So, so it may be then as an employee that you feel that, you know what, Delroy, one, I don't really know if I can be bothered. Secondly, I've got a lot on my plate already, and I'm not too sure whether the leadership is really interested. I'm not too sure. I could say about leadership being called into question, but I'm not going to spend any time. So what can you do as an employee to avoid moral injury? These are just some of my reflections. You'll have your own, and maybe I suggest something and it gives you an idea. I think one of the things that sometimes when things happen and in the moment, we're overwhelmed by what's happened, but I always say to folks, step back. And is there anything that you can see as you step back that you didn't see while you were overwhelmed in the moment? Quite often there is, but it just takes a way of thinking and just maybe seeing where you'd not normally see. So one of the things I say to folks, observe the landscape. What happens when things go wrong in your organization? Do leaders jump down on people? Are people ostracized? Or is there a sense that leaders are really interested in the welfare of their employees, and they'll call people together, find out what went wrong, and fix it? Is that the type of landscape you're in? I suspect if that's the type of work environment you're in, you won't have moral injury, but you'll have moral injury where leadership is not open to discussion. Somebody was telling me recently where they work down south, they've been trying to get a meeting with their leadership team for a good few years, nothing doing. And in those instances, sometimes it's really difficult, I know, because people have shared stuff with me, and it's really difficult sometimes to leave because there's so much stacked on the income that you're working. So it's not always easy. Okay, right, somebody else is watching it. Okay, right, so observe the landscape. What goes on? When things go wrong, how does your team, your leader, how do they manage the situation? That's really, really important. Number two, is there a union that you can be part of? They can be very helpful. If you've got a good union rep, they can be really, really helpful. I've met people over the years who have been in some really tricky situations, and they've been helped significantly by union. I spoke about ACAS last week, which is a body outside of workplaces that are there to bring about good work relationships between the employee and the employer, and they can be accessed. And the material share is confidential. They do mediation if it needs to be between employer and employee. They do that type of thing. One of the things I've always advocated as an employee, have a good sense of the procedures and policies. That's always important. Have access them, read them. I've shared the story with my friend already, who got all his money back just by using the procedures and policies which the organization did not adhere to, and he got every penny back. And he was an overseas person, so he got every single penny back. One of the things I said that you have to do, you have to learn how to be comfortable. And let me explain myself. It's very difficult for us as human beings seeing something, knowing it's wrong, and turning a blind eye. There's something about us that we want to see equality and justice. And when we're repeatedly seeing something which we know clearly is wrong, is unethical, unprofessional, we see it and we see that people are suffering, there's something innate within us that can't sit comfortably. And one of the ways, of course, I was saying that maybe one of the things we have to do to avoid it is to learn to almost, maybe being comfortable is perhaps not the right term, almost ignoring how we feel. There is a cost to that, though. We cannot continually ignore things and carry on as normal. If we get to the stage where we can't sleep at night and we're having problems with anxiety and so forth because we're seeing things and we're not doing anything about it, that type of being is unsustainable. Okay, really unsustainable. Okay, so I want to share a few things as well. I wonder, in your workplace, you see things, and I call this the kind of kitchen conversation or the water cooler conversation. You're not the only person seeing something clearly wrong. Can you do some? Can 2, 3 of you not kind of gang mass the office of the leader, but is there a way you could work together strategically, get allies, that the issue could be approached in a particular way? One of the things, of course, in a meeting is that you can address things to say, look, this is my observation, or can we be reminded of our policies and procedures about certain things? So you're addressing it without pointing it out. There are skillful ways in which you can do things. There was something, it reminded me of when, now this isn't to do with moral injury, but this is something that you can do as a workforce. Where I worked for once upon a time, we were told you see 5 clients a day, but we were really high risk clients, and we had regular team meetings that was really, really good, and we can talk about things. But then one meeting we had all counselors together, and we started to share how we were getting really tired at the end of the day, and the 5th person wasn't getting the best. So what we decided as counselors to do was just to see 4 clients a day. Now, I left 4 or 5 years afterwards. It was never raised in management. We did it. We did our admin, but it gave us space. So at the end of the day, we were reasonably fresh, and we saw the last client and we were reasonably fresh. That's just a decision that we made amongst ourselves as fellow therapists. So sometimes there's something that you can do to help each other, to protect each other. And I remember on one occasion where a manager wasn't particularly nice to an individual, and we couldn't respond back. But what we did, we ensured that we circled the individual who'd been kind of got at quite unfairly, really, in a meeting, and we made sure that we were safe, not just after the meeting, but going forward. We made sure that she was not left exposed ever again. So one of the things that we can do is to build allies, develop allies within our workplaces. Really, really important. Sometimes we get access to staff surveys and staff information and network information, and that's something that can be raised at a meeting. There might be a spokesperson, but in the meeting there's 3 or 4 of you, even more, who are supportive of what's going to be suggested, and then it's up to the leadership team to see what they do with it or not. It's interesting. I wonder how many conversations, and here's the point, I wonder how many conversations took place over the years before the menopause is now sent. It's not dismissed now. It's there. Organizations are talking about it now. And maybe, yes, some of them have a little way to go in terms of it becoming more acceptable, but at least they're talking about it. Whereas once upon a time, they wouldn't even discuss it. And I'm sure this started off with a drip, drip, drip effect. So the whole thing around the menopause day, now it's a part of office discussion. That started off, I'm sure, with a comment or two, which was dismissed. But over time, and yes, wider political pressure from female groups has really kind of pushed the agenda. So I want to use this quote by Margaret Mead, maybe encourage someone today. Maybe some of you have heard the quote before, a fantastic quote. Margaret Mead, anthropologist. This is what she said. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Excuse me. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So don't dismiss getting together, allies, working together. It's really, really important. And we do that slowly. And as I started to continue looking at this, there's 2 things I'm going to share with us. And you might say, well, Delroy, you really have gone on. You really have lost it. In each job description, I suspect, and certainly if you're asked to be a team player, I think there's 2 things built in implicitly in the job description. I want you to hear me out. There's aspects of human rights and aspects of civility. Human rights is the rights inherent on all human beings, regardless of race, sexual orientation, nationality, ethnicity, language, religion, or any other strata. They have the right to life. They have freedom from torture and slavery, freedom from inhumane and degrading behavior, and the right to liberty and security, inbuilt with every job description. It's not said, but I believe it's inbuilt implicitly. Every human being has the right to freedom, the right to liberty, and the right to security. Within every job description, within every culture, implicitly is civility. I think it's inbuilt, it's there, it's not written out explicitly, but in terms of how we relate to individuals, civility, human rights is there. Civility is formal politeness, courteous behavior in speech, that we're professional, we're ethical, we're respectful, and courteous in our interactions with people. I think it's inbuilt in every single job description. I want to end on this. An interview with Quincy Jones. You're thinking, Delroy, we're talking about moral injury. What's Quincy Jones got to do with moral injury? Bear me out. Hold on a second. It was asked the question, because something had happened, and somebody said to him, how are you going to deal with that problem? Let me just check here. Oh, okay. How are you going to deal with this problem? He said, I don't have problems. I have puzzles. A problem is a situation or a question or a thing that causes difficulty or stress or doubt. It's meant to inspire thought. A puzzle is a toy problem designed to amuse, entertain, but to bring about a resolution by ingenuity and creativity. You see the difference? So we could see some of the situations in our workplaces and how we would describe it. It's a problem. We're looking at moral injury, but it could be something else going on in your workplace. It's a problem. But I just wonder whether if we saw it as a puzzle, it means that there is with puzzles, it means there is a solution or solutions. The idea of puzzles gives itself more to solution or solutions. Problems doesn't. Problems can be negative. It's hard work. It's difficult. But a puzzle is given to amuse, entertain with the idea that there are answers. There's resolution. There is a solution. Think about that. I'm reminded of the Jordan Peterson quote. I'm going to finish in a couple of minutes. I'm really conscious of 30 minutes. And people who watch it every week, listen, I take my hat off to you. Those of you that watch it, catch up, listen, I really take my hat off to you. And hopefully you have your notebooks and maybe begin to see if there's things happening in your workplace. You know, these things work. I'm not just making this stuff up. These things do work. Quote by Jordan Peterson. He was in, unfortunately, I can't find the DVD video, but I remembered he was asking the question. He talked to a young man and it was about the pain of moving on, going forward. And he said, well, of course, he said, in terms of moving forward, you need to think through what you need to do. But he said, the pain of moving forward is far less intense than the pain of staying still in a situation that you don't like. And I think can moral injury be avoided? It can through good leadership, maybe by you saying a drip, drip, drip effect, that maybe you say something now, and you drip really slow drip, but in 2 or 3 years' time, it's different. It's not easy. It calls for courage, for challenge. But if you see something and it's bothering you, it means you need to do something about it. For those of you who may not know, I read something that really bothered me and got me cross. That's why I started the broadcasts. And sometimes when things bother you or gets you cross or angry, you need to do something about it. It might not be a broadcast, but you need to do something about it. So I'm going to finish on there. I'll just finish with a final quote by an author, Australian author. She writes non-fiction and fiction. Her name is Randa Abdel Fattah. And this is what she said. Bad things happen when good people remain silent. Sometimes we remain silent because it's happening behind us and we can't see it. We don't know. But sometimes the things happen right in front of us and we remain silent. And in remaining silent, sometimes people suffer when in fact we could have done something to help. Finish on that. You'll decide for yourself whether moral injury can be avoided or not. Thank you very much indeed for your time. I'm still going to work on Facebook. We've got to get this right. Got to get this right. Don't know how it was deleted, but got to get this right. And thank you very much indeed for your patience. Those of you on Facebook, thank you very much indeed. It's clear that it's going on Facebook. So thank you all very, very much indeed. And speak to you soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening and the rest of your week. Wishing you well always. Take care. All the best. Bye-bye. And thank you for taking the time out to listen in again this week. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.